Isn't it fantastic that we're back? Now, look, you always knew that Meghan was going to do great things, even when she was 13.
I did. Megan was always a very strong, confident young person. And it was very clear to me at the time that, we were together, I would say, that yeah, she had a very clear idea of where she wanted her path to take her.
So what was it about her that you thought, I really like that girl and I want her to be my girlfriend?
Well, I think as she told it, she approached me. So I think that in itself was very attractive. That a young person would have the confidence and gumption
Yeah.
to walk up to me and tell me that she thought that I was attractive or anything like that. And it was at the time that that we were together. It's what kids did, right? So she told her friends she liked me. I told my friends I like her, and then our friends met, and then they kind of arranged it, and then we became girlfriend and boyfriend.
And you've stayed in touch. You have stayed in touch. I mean, it must have been quite strange when you found out, though, that she was going to marry into royalty. I mean, you always knew she was going to do wonderful things, but that was something else. She was going to be, a duchess eventually.
Well, my only thought when I found out that she was going to be marrying Harry was that I hope she's happy. That's all that matters. I mean, love is love, no matter what the relationship looks like or what the background is. So as long as that love is authentic and honest and real, then I'm happy for her.
Absolutely. And I know that you got on very well with her mum, and stayed
Yeah.
in touch with her too, all through those years.
Yeah, yeah. Megan and I dated when we were kids, broke up before high school, and we stayed friends throughout high school. And I would see her every now and then at the church we were going to. But I mostly stayed in contact with her mom, and her mom would let me know what she's up to. And Meg's doing this, and Meg's in Canada, and Meg's modeling, Meg's acting. So I always knew that she was. Definitely staying busy and keeping on her trajectory of success.
No, absolutely. And I guess as well, for somebody who's now one of the most famous women in all of the world, it's actually really good to have friends, friends from when you were growing up that you know that you can trust. That's very, very important, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I hope that whatever Meg is doing in this moment, she knows she can trust me. I definitely have nothing but respect for her and what it looks like she's doing. I love that her and Harry are working on this documentary with Oprah about mental health. I think mental health is one of the biggest crises in our world right now, and so that's great that they're going to be drawing a lot of attention to that. I even heard that she might run for office in the States here. And so, depending on who she surrounds herself with, that could be great. So, yeah, I support her as long as she's keeping her focus on creating social change and awareness and trying to make the world a better place. That's awesome.
Sure. I just wonder what your wife thinks, though. There is always a dark side, isn't there? And, they have come up for a lot of criticism. How do you think she will deal with that? Is she pretty good at that?
It seems like she's handling it well. I
Yeah.
mean, she got on Oprah and she was very honest and transparent about her experiences with the royal family. There's a history of racism that I'm sure within the royal family that goes way back to the transatlantic slave trade, right? So the fact that Meghan was able to get on TV and bravely talk about that is awesome. And whenever people of color speak out against oppression and racism, generally the public within the public there's a huge backlash. So the fact that she got up and spoke about that, even knowing that it could create a lot of tension between her and her family, I thought was really amazing and courageous on her part.
And
Let's talk about what just happened on British television, because it wasn't just awkward, it was telling. It pulled back the curtain on everything that's wrong with the way the media treats Meghan Markle. And it all began with a so-called exclusive that promised drama, scandal, and controversy. But instead of a train wreck, we got something much rarer. Truth. Lorraine, a longtime fixture of morning talk shows, and no stranger to subtle digs at Meghan and Harry, promoted this segment like it was a royal revelation. "Someone from Meghan's past," she said, with that dramatic pause that hinted something juicy was about to drop. And the audience took the bait. Because that's how it works, right? Tease a takedown, promise chaos, and people will tune in. But instead of chaos, they got Joshua. No, not a former husband, not a scorned lover, not some scandal-drenched secret. Joshua, Meghan's childhood boyfriend. That's right, from childhood. We're talking about someone who dated Meghan when they were still learning how multiplication tables worked. Someone who probably passed notes in class and played tag at recess. And yet this was framed as a major scoop. The producers were hoping he'd bring dirt. They were probably praying for some hidden resentment, some trace of bitterness. Maybe a story about Meghan being dramatic or cold or calculated, anything that could fit their favorite narrative. But Joshua didn't play their game. He walked into that studio with something no one expected: dignity. Instead of accusations, he offered insight. Instead of throwing shade, he brought warmth. And instead of fueling gossip, he told the truth. "She's always been honest," he said. And you know, that one sentence just shifted the entire tone of the show. You could almost hear the air suck out of the room. That wasn't in the script. Joshua wasn't bitter. He wasn't uncomfortable. He wasn't even remotely interested in helping them stir up controversy. He was kind, reflective, mature, and most of all, unimpressed by the media circus. He defended Meghan. He praised her honesty. He talked about the girl he remembered. Kind, open, sincere. A girl who, even back then, had the same strength of character she shows today. He mentioned watching the Oprah interview and said what most rational people saw: a woman speaking her truth with courage and vulnerability. That's when the entire operation started to unravel. You could see it in the host's face. The expectation of drama just dissolved into awkward silence. The grin turned into tight-lipped discomfort. This wasn't the bombshell they'd promised the audience. This was a reflection, a tribute, a rare, unscripted moment of humanity, and it completely derailed their plan. You have to ask, what were they expecting? That a man who knew Meghan when they were kids would arrive with a bag of secrets? Were they hoping for playground trauma? A betrayal at the school dance? The sheer absurdity of the premise is laughable. It's also honestly deeply sad. Sad that this is what British television has become. A scavenger hunt for anything that can be used to discredit one woman. A woman who simply chose to live life on her own terms, outside the royal machine. They dug into her past looking for dirt and, well, ended up finding something they couldn't twist. Character. And instead of letting that be enough, you could just tell the show felt cheated. Their tone flatlined. The fake interest evaporated. It was like watching someone unwrap a gift and find kindness. Behind the scenes, it must have been chaos. Producers fumbling in earpieces, trying to redirect the conversation, searching for some way to salvage the segment. But there was no saving it, because this wasn't a train wreck. It was a reality check, and the public saw right through it. Viewers took to social media, and the response was honestly brutal. Not toward Meghan, but toward the show. Wrong guy, Lorraine. Joshua saw through your trap. This is embarrassing. And they were right. Because what happened on live TV was the exact opposite of what the media hoped for. It was not a takedown. It was a revelation. A man came forward and simply told the truth, and that truth was boring to those who feed off lies. But for those of us tired of the Meghan smear machine, it was refreshing. Because here's the thing. The media keeps trying to sell us this version of Meghan that doesn't hold up. They frame her as manipulative, fame-hungry, cold. But over and over we see something else. Poise, strength, sincerity. Even people from her past, people with no reason to lie, speak highly of her. Not just about what she says, but how she treats people, how she's always been. That matters. Yet still, the double standard remains. Why is it always Meghan's past on trial? Where's the deep dive on Kate Middleton's early romances? Where's the hunt for William's exes? Why aren't we interviewing Charles's former flames on morning television? We all know the answer. Meghan was never protected. She was never extended the same grace. From the moment she entered the royal sphere, the media went digging. Not for understanding, but for ammunition. And when they don't find it, they don't stop. They just dig deeper. This time, all the way back to childhood. Next time, maybe her preschool friend or her first babysitter. It's pathetic, and it's transparent. What Lorraine's segment proved, unintentionally, is that Meghan's integrity runs deep. That even when the media claws at her history, the truth stands firm. She wasn't manufactured by PR. She wasn't created for headlines. She was a good person before the palace, before the cameras, before the chaos. And she still is. This relentless targeting isn't journalism. It's honestly character assassination on autopilot, and people are waking up to it. They're tired of the smears, tired of the manipulation, tired of pretending these so-called exclusives are anything but hit jobs, just wrapped in morning show smiles. The most ironic part? They could have had a beautiful story about a woman whose values never changed, about a childhood sweetheart who remembered her for her heart, not for headlines. But they couldn't stomach that story. Because it didn't sell. But here's the reality. Audiences are changing. They're demanding more. They want authenticity. They're rejecting the recycled outrage and recognizing the media's bias for what it is. And as for Meghan, she's still standing. Still building. Still being herself. Openly, gracefully, and unapologetically. So to Lorraine, and every producer who thinks the past is a weapon, maybe take a moment and realize what you're actually doing. You're not exposing Meghan, you're exposing yourselves. You're revealing your bias, your desperation, your failure to evolve. And guess what? The viewers see it now. The game's up. The narrative's tired. And Meghan? She's already 10 steps ahead, living her life with purpose while the media tries to chase shadows in her rearview mirror. Let it go. Move on. She has. And maybe that's what scares them most, that Meghan doesn't need them. She doesn't need to explain, to perform, or to apologize for thriving. While the media clings to their outdated playbook of manufactured scandal and petty character assassination, Meghan continues to rise, not in defiance, but in peace. That's power, that's resilience, and honestly, no amount of bad faith interviews or awkward morning segments can touch that kind of truth. So, when the cameras cut and the fake smiles fade, what's left? A woman who refuses to be broken, a media machine that's honestly running out of tricks, and a public that's beginning to choose facts over fiction, substance over spectacle. Meghan's story isn't one of scandal. It's one of survival. And that, in the end, is what truly shines through the noise. Because truth doesn't need a PR team. It doesn't need spin. When someone's core is solid, their story speaks for itself. Meghan's strength has never come from fighting back. It's come from walking forward, even as the media throws stones behind her. That kind of peace, that kind of grounded self-worth, it scares the people who rely on chaos to stay relevant. So let the media scramble for their next gotcha moment. Let them chase schoolmates and ex-boyfriends and third cousins twice removed. Meghan's not playing that game, and frankly, neither are we. The public is evolving. The narrative is crumbling, and all that's left standing is the one woman they couldn't break, because she was never pretending in the first place. Because truth doesn't need a PR team. It doesn't need spin. When someone's core is solid, their story speaks for itself. Meghan's strength has never come from fighting back. It's come from walking forward, even as the media throws stones behind her. That kind of peace, that kind of grounded self-worth, it scares the people who rely on chaos to stay relevant. And while the press continues to recycle bitterness, Meghan is modeling something far more radical: healing. She's showing the world that it's possible to rise above, to choose family, to prioritize peace over performance. That's not weakness, that's evolution. And that's why she keeps winning, not in headlines, but in real life. Because at the end of the day, legacies aren't written by tabloids. They're written in how we treat people, how we rise under pressure, and how we hold on to our values when it would be easier to let them go. Meghan's legacy, it's already in motion, and no amount of media noise will ever silence that truth.